Ever get that feeling where it's not just raining, it's a full-blown monsoon?
Oh, yeah.
Stock prices tanking, competitors basically eating your lunch,
Yeah.
and the captain of the ship, well, he decides it's time to abandon deck.
Right. That sinking feeling.
That's pretty much the situation swirling around Parts Unlimited, POOD, as their stock ticker keeps reminding everyone.
Grim reminder, yeah.
And we've got our hands on some, well, pretty fascinating stuff. Internal updates, these frantic email threads, even bits of, hushed virtual hallway chats.
The real inside scoop.
And let me tell you, the IT department, they are smack bang in the eye of this business hurricane.
Absolutely. Center stage, unfortunately, for them.
So our mission today, really, is to wade through all this raw info and try to understand the initial chaos. What were the core challenges IT was facing right at the start?
And it's crucial, like you said, this isn't just about tech problems, is it?
No, not at all. This is about survival.
Yeah.
How technology, or maybe the lack of functioning technology, is hitting the company's bottom line.
Hard. Exactly. The documents, they paint a really stark picture. This isn't your, average IT help desk ticket queue.
Okay.
The issues here show just how deeply tangled up IT's problems are with the company's, its overall financial health. It really highlights how IT isn't just support anymore.
Right. It's critical.
It's like a vital organ, and when it's sick, the whole body, the whole company suffers.
Okay, so let's dive in. Starting at the top, the big news, leadership shakeup.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Masters, chairman for 8 years, he's stepping down. And in a move that kind of screams, we need help, Bob Strauss, a former chairman and CEO from like 20 years ago.
Wow, going way back.
He's making a comeback. It just feels like this massive reset button push.
Desperate times, maybe.
And look at the context. Stock price down 19% in just the last 30 days. And get this, 52% down from their peak. Ouch.
That is brutal. Yeah, bringing back a veteran like Strauss in that situation, it sends a real signal, doesn't it?
What kind of signal do you think?
Well, it suggests they feel they need that seasoned experience, maybe a totally different approach to pull the company out of this nosedive.
Like looking for past glory.
Maybe. Or at least stability. When companies do that, bring back old leaders, it often means they're deeply worried about where things are headed. They're hoping that, what worked before might work again, or at least calm things down.
Okay, and right in the middle of all this boardroom drama, we meet a key player for our story. Bill Palmer.
Ah, Bill. Yeah.
So Steve Masters, the outgoing chairman, was apparently looking at him for the VP of IT operations job.
Right, trying to get him in before leaving.
But Bill's reaction wasn't exactly jumping for joy, was it?
No, not from what we see. Pretty blunt, actually.
Yeah, his internal thoughts are quite revealing. He talks about budget requests constantly denied, staff requests denied, and this revolving door of executives.
Sound like a tough gig.
Like trying to build something solid on quicksand.
Exactly. And Bill's hesitation, his honesty about those problems, it makes you wonder, why was Steve so keen to bring him in right then?
Good question.
Bill clearly gets the challenges, the budget issues, the instability. He's got his eyes wide open. Maybe Steve saw that realism as a strength.
Possibly. Not someone who'd just accept the status quo.
Right. It resonates. If you've ever seen leaders trying to fix things without actually giving people the resources or fixing the underlying organizational mess.
Okay, and here's a little detail that caught my eye. It mentions Bill's background. He was a Marine sergeant.
Yeah, that's right.
And Steve himself, the outgoing chairman, he was Army for 8 years.
Huh. Interesting connection.
It's small, but it almost feels like, a potential reason. Shared military background, maybe Steve hoped for that kind of discipline, that focus in all this chaos.
That could definitely be part of it. That shared background, it often means a certain mindset, right? Discipline, mission focus under pressure, understanding chains of command.
Someone who can handle the trenches.
Maybe. Steve might be betting that Bill's background gives him the resilience, the strategic thinking needed for this mess in IT. It's a bet on a specific kind of problem solver.
Okay, so fast forward a bit and boom, crisis mode.
Right into the fire.
The payroll run is failing. We see this email, all caps, urgent, from the CFO, Dick Landry, to Steve. Basically, the alarm bells are ringing loud. Thousands of employees might not get paid.
Yeah, that's about as serious as it gets for IT impacting the business directly.
This isn't abstract. This is people's rent, their groceries, real-world impact immediately.
Absolutely. Payroll failure, that hits trust, morale, everything. It's fundamental. And the fact that it failed suggests some really serious weaknesses in their systems.
Landry's panic in that email is palpable.
You bet. It's a perfect example of how a seemingly internal IT issue can just explode into a massive business crisis.
So, in the middle of this scramble, we meet a couple of key IT folks. Wes, described as large, outspoken, not afraid to say what he thinks.
Okay, the direct type.
And then Patty, sort of his opposite, it seems. Thoughtful, analytical, very process-focused.
Ah, the classic pairing. The doer and the planner, maybe.
Yeah, that contrast kind of sets the stage for potential team dynamics, right?
Definitely. You see this a lot in IT. Wes's, charge ahead style versus Patty's methodical approach. They can work well together.
If they communicate.
Exactly. But under pressure, those differences can cause real friction if they're not careful, if they tackle problems in completely different ways.
So the first attempts to figure out the payroll mess, they mentioned a SAN upgrade Brent was working on.
Right, the storage area network. Central data hub.
Which normally you upgrade to make things better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So linking it to a payroll failure is suspicious.
Very suspicious. Usually upgrades improve things, or if they fail, it's often catastrophic, not subtle.
But then Anne from finance, she finds something much more specific.
This is the crucial bit.
Social Security numbers for all the factory hourly workers are corrupted, zeroed out, and their hours and wages also zero.
Okay.
And here's the really weird part. It's only that specific data for that group. Nothing else seems broken in the same way.
That is bizarre. Yeah, like you said, a big SAN failure would likely cause much wider damage. This isolation, it feels targeted.
Right, like someone flipped a very specific switch.
Or a very specific piece of code went wrong. And the fact it's SSNs, that's not just a tech glitch, that's PII. Huge compliance and security alarms should be going off.
And this is where the finger starts pointing towards a developer.
The plot thickens.
Apparently made some urgent change to a timekeeping app right before going on vacation.
Yeah.
And possibly, this is the kicker, possibly at the request of the CISO, John Pesha.
Ooh, security involved. That adds a layer.
And Bill's immediate reaction, he doesn't trust developers generally, but developers working with security. That seems to worry him even more.
That's telling. It highlights that potential friction, right? Dev teams wanting to move fast, ops wanting stability. And sometimes there's a view, fair or not, that devs might cut corners on robustness for speed.
And bringing security into that mix without clear processes.
Yeah, ideally dev and security work hand in glove. But if communication or process breaks down, you can get these unintended, sometimes disastrous consequences. Bill's suspicion flags that potential dysfunction.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about Phoenix.
Ah, yes, the big project.
Described as critical. And Steve Masters is pushing hard to launch it this quarter. Why? Because of promises he made to investors, to analysts. The pressure feels immense.
Yeah, that context is key. With the stock price tanking, showing progress, hitting those external commitments for Phoenix becomes paramount. It's about demonstrating they still have momentum, trying to restore confidence.
Even if it means rushing.
That's the risk, isn't it? Business pressure driving potentially unrealistic IT timelines. You see it happen.
What really jumps out is the contrast. This insane urgency around Phoenix versus the planning for apparently installing water fountains.
Yes, that comparison is stark.
Bill's notes say 9 months planning for water fountains.
Yeah.
But Phoenix, this critical, complex system, they're talking about planning and executing in 1 week.
It beggars belief almost. It screams disconnect between what leadership wants and the reality of delivering complex IT.
Like 2 different universes.
Exactly. That massive gap between the 9 months for Fountains and 1 week for Phoenix. It raises huge questions about how they assess risk, how they allocate resources, their whole project management approach, really, or lack thereof.
And adding to Bill's frustration, Sarah, who seems key to Phoenix, apparently just dismisses his concerns about the crazy timeline.
Brushes him off. Not good.
Yeah, which hints at maybe personality clashes, or at least conflicting priorities getting in the way.
That's a major red flag. When people raise legitimate concerns about risk or feasibility and just get ignored, that often points to a culture where business demands trump reality.
Leading to cut corners.
Leading to cut corners, more errors, and ultimately a much higher chance the project just blows up. Bad communication, conflicting agendas, they can kill projects.
And we're already seeing the fallout. Brent, who's obviously this key tech guy needed for Phoenix.
The go-to guy.
He's constantly getting pulled into firefighting. Like, there's a network outage, pull Brent. Something else breaks, pull Brent.
The classic firefighter syndrome.
Exactly. So busy putting out fires, there's no time to actually build the fireproof building, which is supposed to be Phoenix.
It's a terrible cycle. Your key people are trapped reacting, so they can't do the proactive work, the planning, the testing, fixing root causes. So more fires start.
And critical projects like Phoenix suffer.
They absolutely do. Delivery slows down, quality drops, stability gets worse. It's a downward spiral.
Okay, so that leads us nicely into change management, or the lack of it.
A critical piece of the puzzle.
We learn Patty is the change manager,
Hmm.
and there is a process on paper, but clearly nobody's following it.
Shelfware sounds like.
Pretty much, yeah. So Patty tries to revive it, schedules a mandatory CIB meeting change advisory board, where you review changes to make sure they don't break everything.
Standard practice in well-run shops.
Mandatory meeting. Guess who shows up?
Let me guess. Not many people.
Us, Bill. And Patty, obviously.
Wow. Just the two of them. That says everything, doesn't it?
Speaks volumes. Total breakdown in process. No buy-in.
Yeah, effective change management is so vital for stability, for managing risk. If it's being ignored like that, it's a huge vulnerability. And it shows you can have processes, but if people don't see the value or leadership doesn't enforce it,
They just get ignored.
exactly.
And Wes, the outspoken guy, his reaction to reviving change management is, well, negative.
He's not a fan.
No. He remembers some past attempt, calls it a kumbaya session, sarcastically. Says it just slowed things down, got in the way.
Okay, so there's history there, bad experiences.
Seems like it. Which suggests maybe past processes were too bureaucratic or just didn't work well, so people are cynical.
That makes it way harder to try again. Wes's reaction is understandable. If the last time felt like pointless hoops to jump through, you can't just mandate it. You have to show how it actually helps, how it reduces their pain, makes things more stable, win hearts and minds,
Right. Show the value. Don't just add paperwork.
Precisely.
And just to make things more complicated, there's an audit looming.
Oh, lovely. Just what they needed.
Enter Nancy, the chief audit executive.
So now there's this whole other set of urgent demands hitting IT. Prepare for the audit.
More pressure, more resource conflicts.
Totally. It's audit prep versus Phoenix delivery versus just keeping the lights on. Pressure cooker.
Yeah, now IT's being pulled three ways at once. Increases the risk they fail at everything: business goals, project delivery, and compliance. It's that classic balancing act, isn't it? Innovation versus keeping things secure and compliant.
And the meeting with Nancy, John the CISO, and Wes sounds tense.
I can imagine.
John seems to be grandstanding about PII tokenization, replacing sensitive data.
Okay, important security topic, sure. But Nancy just shoots it down, basically. Says thanks, but that's not relevant to this audit, which is SOX 404, Sarbanes-Oxley financial controls.
So John's off on a tangent.
Completely. It perfectly shows that silo problem, doesn't it? John's focused on his security world, but it's not what the audit needs right now. Total misalignment.
Yeah, are they even talking about the same priorities? Does everyone understand what's actually critical for the business right now? It seems like maybe not.
The tension sounds really high. Resource conflicts boiling over. They're supposed to be protecting Phoenix resources.
Because it's critical.
Right. But the audit findings need attention now. And it sounds like everyone, for everything, relies on Brent.
The single point of failure.
Those frustration is just growing and growing. How long can you run a department relying on one hero?
You can't. Not sustainably. It's a massive risk. What if Brent gets sick? Or leaves? Or just gets totally burned out?
The whole thing grinds to a halt.
Pretty much. It's a huge bottleneck, kills knowledge sharing. It's a symptom of deeper problems, lack of cross-training, probably understaffing. You need resilient teams, not just one superhero.
Then, plot twist, enter Erik Reid, potential new board member.
Okay, a fresh perspective.
Maybe. He gives Bill, Steve, and Dick what Bill calls an intelligence test, part of which involves Bill visiting a manufacturing plant, MRP8, with Erik.
A factory tour. Interesting.
And Erik starts talking manufacturing concepts, work in process, WIP, calls it the silent killer, talks about controlling the release of jobs, materials.
Applying factory floor principles to IT.
Exactly. It feels like a real shift in thinking for Bill.
It is. Erik's drawing that parallel. In manufacturing, WIP is stuff you've started but haven't finished. It ties up money, hides problems. He's saying IT has WIP too.
Like features not deployed, bugs not fixed.
Precisely. Unresolved incidents, half-done projects. All that work in process in IT can create bottlenecks, waste effort, delay actual value delivery, just like on a factory floor.
Erik then throws out a bunch of names and theories. Theory of constraints, lean, Total quality management.
Goldratt, Toyota Production System, Deming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the classics of operations management.
He mentions The Goal, that famous book about bottlenecks. It's like he's giving Bill Operations Management 101.
He is. But applying it directly to IT's problems, he's showing Bill and us that these aren't unique IT issues. Other industries figured out how to manage flow and constraints decades ago.
And the core idea is control WIP.
Control WIP, find your bottleneck, manage the flow through the bottleneck, that's the essence. Improve the whole system, not just optimize one part in isolation.
And Erik's final point at the plant really seems to hit Bill hard.
Yeah.
He says, until you understand what work is in IT, any attempt to control it is basically doomed.
Boom. That's fundamental. Before you can manage or improve anything, you have to agree on what it is. What is work in IT?
It sounds obvious, but maybe it isn't.
Apparently not at Parts Unlimited. Is it deploying features, fixing bugs, answering emails, resetting passwords, handling audit requests? What truly adds value versus just, churn or dealing with self-inflicted problems? That clarity seems missing.
Okay, so back from the plan visit, Bill tries to get this clarity from Steve. Priorities meeting. Phoenix versus audit. Resources needed.
The big showdown, or attempt at one.
And Steve's response. Just blunt. I need to do both. No prioritization.
Oof. The classic non-answer answer.
Leaves Bill completely stuck, right?
Totally. Steve's under pressure, sure, but refusing to prioritize when resources are clearly stretched thin. That just sets the team up to fail. You can't do everything at once if you don't have the capacity. It's just reality. Good leadership means making those tough calls.
Bill even puts it out there. We're understaffed. We might have to pause compliance work to focus on Phoenix.
Laying it on the line.
Steve immediately shoots that down. No way, look at this pile of audit findings.
Can't ignore compliance.
So Bill asks directly, okay, I need 6 more people.
A concrete request.
And Steve's response, kind of lukewarm, deflects about existing headcount approvals. Doesn't sound like help is on the way.
No. It really highlights that gap, doesn't it? Bill's reality on the ground versus Steve's reluctance or maybe inability to provide the actual support needed. Resisting more staff despite the obvious overload and conflicting demands. That hints at bigger budget issues or maybe just not grasping the severity of the IT situation.
So the Revive CAB meeting finally happens. And instead of the trickle they might have expected after the first no-show,
they get flooded.
Totally overwhelmed. Patty's apparently shocked by the sheer number of change requests submitted.
So the work was happening just underground.
Seems like it. All this pent-up demand, all these changes people wanted to make, maybe informally or just deferred, suddenly putting in a process, even a shaky one, makes all that invisible work visible.
And the volume is scary. It shows just how much change is actually flowing or trying to flow through the system. You need a process to manage that chaos.
What's really alarming, though, is they discover a ton of these changes are scheduled for Friday, the same day as the Phoenix deployment.
Oh, no. Please tell me they're not serious.
Apparently they were. Huge red flag, right? Change collisions, resource contention if Phoenix or one of the other changes goes wrong.
It's Change Management 101. Don't stack up major changes, especially not on the same day as your highest risk deployment. That's just asking for disaster. It shows a complete lack of coordination, zero planning foresight.
So Bill takes one small step. He tells Patty, okay, during Sev1 calls the major outages, I want you to present a timeline of recent changes.
Good move, connecting the dots.
Trying to see if changes are causing these big incidents.
Yeah.
Linking action to consequence.
Exactly. Bringing change data into incident management. It helps you troubleshoot faster. Was it that change we deployed 2 hours ago? Crucial situational awareness.
So this first deep dive kind of wraps up with Bill talking to Erik again. And this big realization hits him.
The light bulb moment.
Yeah. The core problem isn't just bad process or no process. It's deeper. It's this fundamental misunderstanding of work itself in IT.
Back to Erik's point at the factory.
Exactly. And you see the backlog of changes just growing, especially after the Phoenix hiccup started causing more unplanned work. They start talking about fragile systems.
Systems that break easily, generating more work.
Right. And the need to fix the source of that unplanned work, probably stuff coming out of development related to Phoenix. And the really big question that starts to surface is,
what work actually matters?
Yes. How do you tell the difference between work that drives business value versus work that's just keeping leaky pipes patched? Or even worse, work that just creates more problems down the line. It feels like they've just been running flat out doing stuff without stopping to ask what they should be doing.
That is the absolute heart of it. Bill's realizing just layering more process onto a broken understanding of the work won't fix anything fundamental. He needs to grasp the flow, find the real constraints, separate the valuable work from the noise, the waste.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
It's pivotal, seeing the need for a much more holistic view of IT operations, not just managing tickets, but managing the entire system of work.
So to sum up this first look, companies in financial trouble, it's chaotic, overwhelmed, under-resourced. There's Phoenix, this huge rushed project. Change management is broken. Priorities are constantly clashing between projects and compliance. And this darning awareness that they don't even really understand their own work.
Quite the mess.
Yeah. So given all that, what do you think? What's the most critical first step Bill needs to take? If he can only focus on one thing initially to get some stability, get some momentum, what should it be?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've seen so many fires burning. Picking the right one to tackle first, the one that gives the biggest leverage for improvement, that's going to be crucial for Bill. It's not just about fixing one thing. It's about starting a positive change that can ripple outwards.
And finding that leverage point, seeing how Bill starts to tackle this mountain of challenges, well, that's exactly where we'll pick up our deep dive next time.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us today.